Hello. I'd like to comment a little bit on the news. We saw last week there was an attempt to assassinate the president of Russia. We also see today in the headlines that there are some newspapers in Ukraine that are asking a question: who should be the next person that we should try to assassinate? And well, of course, Catholic morality has to say something about this. And in this case, I don't think it's just Catholic morality. It's just any moral person would have this sense that you have to consider if you're going to assassinate somebody, right? You have to consider, first of all, is the person an unjust ruler? Is the person unjustly installed? Or is the person exceedingly unjust in the way that he is governing? And I think when you look at the circumstances of Russia or the leader of Russia, I think you can say, number one, he's not unjustly installed. Right? He's not a tyrant who has somehow taken power unjustly in his society. All the opinion polls that we see, even Western countries that go to do opinion polls in Russia around the time of elections, see that the current president of Russia has incredible popularity and obtains the vast majority of the vote. And Catholic social teaching indicates to us that, well, the natural way in the modern world of participating in politics is through elections. It also reminds us that pretty much any form of government is just or unjust based on whether it serves the common good. Now, if we were to ask the question, well, let's just say someone is unjust. Can you assassinate him? Well, first of all, that has to be carried out by a legitimate authority, usually a legitimate authority within the nation. It also should be carried out by those who have a plan for once you assassinate the person, well, who are you going to replace him with? And I think in this case, just blindly assassinating people as a kind of vengeance without any kind of subsequent plan is not just. Because, well, part of the assassination, if you wanted to carry it out, Aquinas speaks about this. He says, well, you have to have a plan somehow to replace, to build up the common good in a better way. And as far as I can tell, whether it's the American government, the deep state, the Ukrainian government, whoever it might be in setting out to assassinate political figures or journalists or whoever else they might be assassinating, it doesn't seem like they have a plan, not even a plan to negotiate, let alone a more important plan, which would be a more serious endeavor, which means, could you take over the country and govern it yourself if you were to get the power? And most likely, if someone, let's say hypothetically, if the assassination were to be carried out, most likely the person that would replace the one that they're trying to assassinate is not going to be someone prone or ready to negotiate, to bring about the desired objective of peace, which is ultimately the objective of the common good that all parties in this case should be pursuing: a negotiated settlement, a negotiated peace. And then the last thing that I think is interesting, Aquinas in his book on being a prince, or on kingship, he says you also have to consider, and he gives the example here of Frederick, who was brutally treating a certain part of Italy, or what became Italy. It wasn't Italy at the time, but Frederick, who was brutally treated a certain part of Italy, and when he finally was going through one of the villages, which he had brutally suppressed or brutally oppressed or brutally treated during his time as king, as emperor, there was an old lady who was kneeling down, and she was praying, "Long live the king, long live the king." And he knew he had mistreated her family, and he knew he had mistreated that city. And so he paused and he asked the lady, he said, "Well, why are you praying that I live a long time?" And she said, "Well, when I was a little girl, I prayed that God might remove a king who was treating us unjustly. And he did. He answered my prayers. He got rid of that king that was treating us unjustly. But he replaced that king with someone who is far worse. So I'd much rather stick with you than pray for your removal and we get someone worse than you. So anyway, if these considerations, if you find them helpful, I hope to make more of them. This is a brief one. There could be longer ones. And if you can go to Buy Me a Coffee and support the work that I'm doing here to upgrade my equipment eventually and perhaps have a more regular intervention here or on Rumble. If you can go to Rumble and go to the same channel, Powers and Principalities, if I get 5 subscribers there, I can start live streaming on Rumble at the same time as YouTube. Thank you. Have a good day.